All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down my Week 15 core plays here for you guys. It's actually kind of a fun slate because we're getting a pretty loaded quarterback slate, some very good running back values, and then a lot of stud receivers to pay up for. So we'll talk about those core plays, and then we're going to plug them into the 9-to-5 lineup builder to see what that spits out to us as the top builds. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, I want to start out with the running back position, and I think there's one clear running back play that we should be going out of our way to target, and that's going to be running back Woody Marks here for the Houston Texans. So obviously he's coming in off of a pretty high volume game against the Kansas City Chiefs. That is something that we like to see. 26 rush attempts, 3 targets, so 29 opportunities in that game. And the nice thing about him is we can kind of think that he's going to play 70+% of the snaps in a very good matchup there against the Arizona Cardinals. And then on top of that, guys, backup running back Nick Chubb could potentially be out as well. Nick Chubb is someone that's been playing about 15 to 30% of the snaps in replace of Woody Marks recently. And so if he were to be someone that ends up sitting, I'm not going to say all that workload would go to Woody Marks, but I think a significant amount of it, especially running back opportunities, would then go to Woody Marks. And so that ends up being a good spot. And then we also look at the projection data here as well, guys. The projection data really likes him as well. Projects him to be about a 14.5 DFS point score, about 2.6x. He's getting a lot of ownership as he should. His rushing yards is about 80 rushing yards, adding about 1.6 catches. So yes, he is someone we should be going out of our way to target. And then there is another running back that I like a lot as well. And then let's go ahead and get into another pretty cheap running back, and that's going to be Devin Neal. Okay, so these are the two running backs I want to be going out of my way to target the most, and it is mostly due to price. Okay, Devin Neal is priced at 5.3. I think we can accurately project him to get around 70% of the snaps now with Alvin Kamara again ruled out. The interesting thing about Devin Neal is he hasn't been used in the passing game as much as I would have thought. He is only projected for about 3.4 receptions and only 20 receiving yards. Now, if he ends up getting that, that's pretty huge. That's 5 DFS points right there. Then you add on his 5.2 in the rushing game, and we're sitting pretty. Now, last week he ended up rewarding us as a pretty good leverage play, ended up scoring a touchdown. Now, the reason why I had him as a leverage play last week and one that I decently liked was because I thought the chalk running back plays that we would be on would end up hitting value, and they mostly all did, but I also didn't necessarily see them breaking the slate. It was a very strong leverage week last week. Now, yes, we got a little bit lucky with a touchdown for him, but I would say that's not out of the equation. Now, it is a lower scoring game. We are going to need to get this floor out of him, but if he ends up scoring a touchdown, he ends up being an even better play. And so with that, we just go with those two running backs, and then that's going to allow us to be able to pay up for the stud receivers that we want to be on. Those stud receivers are pretty darn easy. I don't know if I really need to break it down that much, but that's kind of the point of going with Devin Neal and Woody Marks. So those stud receivers are going to be Puka Nacua, JSN, and then also Jamar Chase. I think those 3 receivers are pretty darn simple to get to. And then, guys, if we just sort it by projected points for receivers, it does go Puka, Chase, and JSN. Now, the ownership all reflects that as it should. They are the clear-cut plays. In the first video I gave you guys, I showed you guys how simple it was to fit those 3 in there, and I think we should be doing it. I think it is literally that simple. Now, value-wise, I do think we are getting one other decent receiver play, and for me, that is going to be Terry McLaurin, priced at 5.4. If we are going to be getting to his quarterback, which we are, spoiler alert, then I think we want to begin to Terry McLaurin, priced at 5.4. That is simply too cheap, and his ownership is pretty darn low. You know, had you told us at the beginning of the year that we were going to get Terry McLaurin with Zach Ertz out in a very good matchup in a decently high-scoring game at 5.4, like, we'd be like, sign me up for that. And so that feels like a big price mistake. And so if you only want to get to 2 out of the 3 receiver studs that we have, then I think we want to begin to Terry McLaurin. And so we can just do Puka, we'll do Chase, and then we could get to JSN or Terry McLaurin. Now we'll come back to that in just a second. I do want to talk about the quarterbacks that we're going to be on. So for me, guys, there's really 2 that I have marked as core plays. Now, I view these 2 as more like core value plays. Given their price tag, there are 2 players we should be going out of our way to target. And obviously one of them is going to be Marcus Mariota. Now, I really view this as we are getting Jaden Daniels at 5K. Okay. And I mean the 2025 version of Jaden Daniels. And I would actually argue that Marcus Mariota has been better than Jaden Daniels this season. I know that might come as a hot take to some people, but that's more of a praise for Mariota. And just obviously Daniels being injured, it hasn't really necessarily looked like himself. And he did play some games in there with Terry McLaurin being out, so never really fully got the shot. But that's kind of the way I'm viewing it. And we also get a very good matchup here against the New York Giants in a game that is supposed to be pretty darn high scoring. I end up liking him a lot. Now, sure, in the game where he took over Daniels against Minnesota, that whole team had nothing going. But like you don't like seeing that, an interception and a fumble. I don't like seeing that. But prior to that, he had an insanely good game there against the Denver Broncos, a game that really should not have been a good game for him. The Broncos defense has been great. Me, as a Packers fan, I'm worried about the matchup that Jordan Love has there in that matchup against the Broncos because that defense has been so good. So the fact that he did that and the fact that in other kind of similar matchups, he was able to at least give us 3x, that's really what I'm expecting. And so very good matchup for him. I expect him to be able to produce some good results. And then honestly, the quarterback in that game who is getting some chalk in that same game is going to be Jackson Dart. And I do agree with that, guys. Very good matchup for him. Appealing game. And the nice thing about this game is we don't have to worry about the weather. It's supposed to be around 30 degrees, not too windy. And so if you guys have ever played football or played outside, that is not too bad. Like, to me, the ideal temp is like 50, but 30 is perfectly manageable, especially when you get going. So we're not worried about the weather. So that gets me liking both Dart and Mariota a decent amount. And I will say, guys, that's not exactly a hot take because they're the two players that project to be the top two values on the slate. We got Mariota about 10%, Dart at about 14% as it currently sits right now. Now, I will say I don't mind the idea of getting to JJ McCarthy as well, guys, who is pretty low owned. I actually think that's a pretty good leverage play. He draws the best matchup out of them. Looked sharp last week. And I mean, come on, Jefferson is just due to get going. But for sample purposes, I'll be getting to Marcus Mariota here. And then I don't really have a core play at tight end, guys. I am just going with Gunnar Helm. He's kind of the lowest price tight end that I feel comfortable getting to, that I think can hit value or exceed value. Playing about 50+% of snaps. Good matchup for him, so I'd rather do that. DST-wise, I am still basically punting. Is there any DST that I feel comfortable getting to? I mean, Raiders against the Eagles. The Eagles have struggled lately. I could get to that. I don't mind that. Yeah, we'll do that. Just trying to go with the lowest price DST that's not going to go negative. That leaves us with 6.2 left over on average. So if we were to go with Terry McLaurin in there to stack with Marcus Mariota, which I don't mind, then we have 7.1 left over. Now, ideally, I would be able to get to JSN and we'd feel great, but obviously we can't do that. So from there, who do I like? Honestly, not much. This is kind of a spot where I would think we would have to rebuild. We could pay up at tight end. We could just get to JSN and see what happens because Mariota can add value on his legs just in general. So we'll do that. And this basically becomes the lineup that I've already showed you guys earlier on this week. And that just, it kind of seems like a straightforward week. So tight end wise at 3.9, who can we get to? We could actually probably get to a double tight end spot as well. But I don't mind Jalen Coker at his price tag. I think that ends up being a decent play. Xavier Legette's there. He's been playing a decent amount of snaps. We could even do two tight ends, Jawan Johnson there instead. So I really don't mind that lineup path. I think that ends up making a decent amount of sense. But with that, and then real quickly, guys, just a slight adjustment to give you guys an official first look build. You guys see the flaw in this lineup here. I'll say, like, I don't like any of these defenses really. Like, none of them get me excited. Like, maybe the Packers against Denver, the Rams against Detroit. Like, I kind of expect that to be a higher scoring game. Like, it is. That's tough. It is like I don't like any of these. Maybe Cleveland against Chicago in a colder game, but that's why I'm like punting to the Raiders DST. But I do really like Harold Fannin at tight end. Like, if I had to give you guys a top tight end play, it would be him. And so I like Chris Rodriguez. I think he's fine at his price tag, but we're going to pay up there. And then we'll get to Robinson I'd be fine with. We could maybe stack that game a little bit. Genty is a play that is really popping stat-wise and value-wise. And so this is going to be the official first look build. I do like stacking, obviously, a running back with DST. That typically correlates pretty well. And so now to give you guys a sample kind of builds with that core, what we would do is I went ahead and did at least 5 of those players that I just mentioned in my builds. Okay, so I did 7 players and I did 5 of them, at least 5. Okay, so I already generated the lineups. I did force QB stack with the pass catcher. I do think that's going to lead us to a lot of Marcus Mariota. We'll see. And then we did tight end flex ineligible because I just wanted to see what lineups it would give us. I actually don't mind the idea of going 2 tight end sets. I do think that ends up making a decent amount of sense. And so we'll go with the top projected lineup. Marcus Mariota, Woody Marks, Devin Neal, Puka, Chase, McLaurin, Mike Gesicki, RJ Harvey, who I'm fine with, and then Bengals DST. I think that works out pretty well. The top projected lineup that we can get to is basically the same. We're just getting to that Genty build, basically, that I showed you guys, which I also don't mind. Instead of Harold Fannin, we're getting to Theo Johnson instead, 2 stack with Dart, which I will say does make sense. So that is all for this video, guys. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to leave a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. Do appreciate you guys being here. If you guys would like access to that 9-to-5 lineup builder, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to that tool for $10 a month, plus all the other tools available on the website. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.